Hello everyone! Today we're going to be going through some of the basics of adding interactivity to a web page using JavaScript. This is part 3 of a 3-part video series on adding structure, style, and interactivity to a web page using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are the 3 core technologies of the World Wide Web. Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm a software developer. My pronouns are she and her, and today I'm filming from the lands of the Paramank people, where sovereignty was never ceded. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I work with Code Like a Girl to provide education and opportunities to help us all become equal creators in building the future. In part 3, we're going to be adding interactivity to our web page using JavaScript. This is our web page so far, and it looks quite nice, but it doesn't really do anything. So we're going to add a way for the user to interact with it to change how the page behaves. JavaScript is a scripting language or a programming language that was originally designed to bring the web to life. And that's what we're going to do today. Before we do that though, we need to add a few things into our index.html document to allow us to work with the JavaScript. I'm going to add a couple of new types of tags into our index file. The first one is a div tag, which is a structural tag, a bit like the main tag we added in the first video. And notice that we're giving it an attribute of class, and the value that we're giving that class attribute is toggle. And we're going to use this to target this element in our CSS. And I'm also adding 2 button tags, which are what we're going to use to give the users something to interact with. So let's give that a bit of style in our CSS file. I'm going to add a style for the button inside of the toggle div, and I'm going to give that button a width of 30 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, margin, and some border radius as well. And then I'm also just going to add a rule set here for when that button is in focus to take away the default outline that the browser gives it. We've got these 2 buttons. They don't do anything yet. What I want them to do is to change the color scheme of the website when they're clicked. So to be able to do that, we're going to add a unique identifier to each button. ID is an attribute a little bit like class. The difference being class you can use on multiple elements in a page, whereas ID can only be used on one element. So the first button, I'm going to give it the ID of light. And the second button, I'm going to give it the ID of dark. Now let's go to our JavaScript and we'll open up our scripts.js file. We're going to start by writing 2 JavaScript methods. One that looks at the element that has an ID of light and the other one that looks at the element that has an ID of dark. Each of these has an on-click event. So when those elements are clicked, it's going to run the specific function. So when the light ID element is clicked, it's going to run the toggle light function. And similarly, when the element that has the ID of dark is clicked, it's going to run the toggle dark function. So next I'm going to write these 2 functions, toggle light and toggle dark. And these are what are going to toggle the different color schemes on my web page. The first function I'm writing has 2 methods. So when the function runs, it's going to get the element by tag name body and change the background color. And it's also going to get the element by tag name h1 and change the color of that. So we can see here that not only in CSS can we target styles and change styles, we can also do that in JavaScript. And the second function I'm writing is the toggle dark function, which does very similar things, but using different colors. So let's see what this does. When I click those buttons, it's going to toggle 2 different color schemes for my web page. I'm just going to adjust the CSS a little bit to make those buttons a little bit more obvious. And I'm going to do that by using those IDs that I added to the button elements. So when I click this button that has the ID of dark, it runs the toggle dark function, which changes the background color and that heading one color. And same thing when I click the element that has the ID of light, it runs the toggle light function. There we go. That's our very simple, structured, styled, interactive web page using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There's a lot more we could do here to make the page more accessible, more responsive, more interesting, and to clean up the code and maybe put in a few more best practice principles. Learning these technologies is quite simple to start with, but developing really quality websites does take time and patience. If you're interested in this, Code Like a Girl does have an Intro to Web Development course, which I'll link in the description below. I'll also link all of the source code if you want to code along at home. If you want to hear more from Code Like a Girl, follow us on social media, subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much to everyone who makes Code Like a Girl possible. If you've made a website, please link it in the comments. Let us know if you've got any tips or questions, and we'll see you next time. Keep coding. Bye.